Hi, everybody. Cool. Okay, so that was a great little energizer. It's always hard coming on at the end of the day, but please bear with me. I've a few lessons I want to share that have been really valuable to me, and I hope they'll be valuable to you, both from the point of view as you start your career and perhaps choose companies that you might want to be part of, or if you yourselves, which I'm sure many of you will, start your own companies. So very quickly on Darragh, I work at Intercom, which you may have heard of. I'm leading the engineering team there. And Intercom is a customer platform and a set of products that enable businesses and their customers to talk in simple, human, personal ways. It's kind of similar to how we all talk amongst friends and family with WhatsApp or Facebook. About a little over 4 years ago, in the depths of winter, I left a good, safe, secure job at Amazon, which is one of the standout companies of our generation, to join Intercom in its complete embryonic state. I just had, my wife and I had just had our second child, and a lot of people thought I was crazy leaving a company with billions of revenue to join one with zero, at a time in my life when perhaps I should have been sensible. But I've had this long realization that life is short. It can disappear in the blink of an eye, and our careers are even shorter. Hopefully, we all live long and have long careers, but the sweet spot of our careers is shorter still. So when you think about these things, it really, really makes sense to follow your heart and to do what you're passionate about. So I left this good job to chase my dream job. And for me, my dream job was to work with great people who inspire me and who I can learn from every day. Work on a problem I deeply care about, something that keeps me up at night and that I can imagine working on for many, many, many years to come. I'm working in a way I believe in. And I've come to realize that this dream job may be a once in a life opportunity, and to think that I might have missed it just by wanting to be sensible. This is the city I'm from. I'm really proud of. It's Dublin. It seems like there's a lot in common with Amsterdam. We've got a very strong tech community. All the big tech companies have presence here with Google and Facebook and Microsoft and Amazon. And a new generation of US tech companies also have a presence here, starting a little bit earlier, like Stripe or Slack or HubSpot or Zendesk, a bunch of others. But the thing that excites me is the new wave of companies, of which Intercom is one, that are building their whole product out of Dublin, and will hopefully pave the way for, if we continue on our success, pave the way for generations ahead of ambitious startups coming out of our city. While I really value the lessons I learned and the time I spent at Amazon, I always felt like a kind of small cog in this big, albeit massively impressive machine. I wanted to be more creative. I wanted to be more in control of my destiny. I wanted to have company-defining impact, not just a tiny bit in a corner. So I felt like the right thing for me to do, and where I was in my career, was to join a startup. And in the early days, we all worked together, super scrappy, 5 or 6 of us all together, designing and building this product. And I love that. I love building software. I love working with people to solve problems. It gives me such energy. And as we've grown, so we've an R&D team of over 100, and the company's approaching 300 people. My role has evolved, and so instead of being one of the people building the software, my job is to create an environment where great people can do great work and have significant impact with the product. So through the lens of Intercom and the lessons I've learned there, I want to share them with you by asking 3 questions. As a company, why do we exist? How do we solve problems? And how do we get stuff done? So first up, why do we exist? A lot of companies talk about what they do. They build a help desk app, or they're building a faster car, or they're building a social network for cats. But great companies talk about why they exist, the change they want to make in the world. So what about Intercom? Why do we exist? Well, for thousands of years, people have been doing business face-to-face based on real human interaction, building relationships with your customers. It was personal and was typically pretty small scale. The internet came along and it enabled tremendous scale. What used to be a bookshop could be reimagined as an online bookstore and grow to become one of the greatest companies of all time. But with that scale, we stripped away a lot of what I feel is the most important thing, which is the human interaction. Today, we see businesses and the way they communicate with their customers online as broken. It's janky. It's impersonal in a whole lot of different ways as hacks to deal with the scale. Things like no reply apps or voice jails or spam. These are all things that have arisen to try to compensate with the scale, but they make it impersonal. And we want to bring joy and simplicity to that. We want to make internet business personal. That's our mission, and that's the thing that I'm excited about. That's why I joined Intercom. So a mission should be clear and actionable, clear and exciting, actionable, and massively ambitious. This should be something that can extend years and years into the future. It's not like a short-term goal. It's like a really long-term thing. And as an example of another great company that's mission-driven, quickly like to talk about Facebook, whose mission is to give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected. It's great, and you can kind of track back a lot of what they did, at times controversial, that has changed how we connect as humans, which completely aligns with this mission. And recently at F8, they talked about their 10-year roadmap. It makes it really, really clear that they're more than what they do. They're not like a social network app. That's what they do or what they did. They're way bigger than that. They're this big system. And for where they're at now, with that very same mission, building drones and satellites and lasers, all these crazy things actually make sense. They could be the things that enable them to connect that next 1 or 2 billion people. Their mission is super powerful and long-living. Here's another example. This is Microsoft's early mission, to put a computer on every desk in every room, or every home, I should say. It's pretty cool. Massively ambitious. Came in a time where computers were things that they just had in colleges or in fancy companies or whatever. And turns out they pretty much nailed this mission. It was awesome. And that's why Microsoft became this amazingly successful company. Wonder, can anyone guess whose mission this is? To enable people and businesses throughout the world to realize their full potential. So to me, it's not super clear, not super actionable, it's pretty vague, not that excited by it. Turns out it's a later era of Microsoft, and perhaps you can track their while they're so super successful, their slight decline in prominence to the fact that they didn't have such a clear mission. So a clear mission is something that makes decision making really easy. Does doing X help to make business personal? For us, that's how we think about things, how we make decisions. And at Intercom, we talk about bad teams as being teams that have no mission, and good teams as being teams that have a clear mission. But what we strive for is to create great teams. And great teams are on a mission. It's palpable. It's exciting. Everyone's aligned and fighting for this thing to succeed. It's more than a job. It's a thing people live and breathe. And that's what you should strive for. That's the kind of environment you should either create or join. So step one, if you're joining or starting a team or company, make sure you have this clear mission, because it's your North Star. It's what will guide you. Without it, you'll meander. There'll be misunderstandings. It's hard to be aligned. If you don't know where you're aiming for, it almost doesn't matter where you go, because you're going to get there. So next up, how do we solve problems? So at Intercom, we've got this pretty clear, simple framework that we apply. So it starts by being really clear about what the outcome you want to enable is. And this, importantly, isn't the solution. It's not exactly what you want to do necessarily. It's the thing you want to enable, not how you will enable it. And then we start by taking small steps, simple steps that enable us to learn what the right solution might be. And then we repeat. Small steps, building momentum, and constantly learning. We're in this discovery mode. keep trying to do the simplest thing we can do to learn what the right thing to do is. And it's all based on the realization or understanding or acceptance that when you start to do something, you know the least about it. And success comes from embracing that, realizing that you've got all this uncertainty and ambiguity, and taking an approach that relies on learning, relies on fast feedback loops. Imagine driving along this road without using your eyes and ears and constantly adjusting. And we crave shipping software because until we ship software, it's just this costly accumulation. It's guesses. If you accept that we're not certain about what the right thing to do is, then everything we do is, until proven, it's a guess. And that's an incredibly costly thing to do if you're building those up, if you're not actually testing those assumptions. So we crave the act of shipping because it's the thing that enables us to test our assumptions. And shipping software has changed a lot. When I was a kid, it involved getting CDs in boxes. They were put in boxes with manuals that people never read and put on ships and sent around the world. And the way that software was shipped had this profound effect on the way software was built. Because you had these long cycle times, it was a year or perhaps longer between making releases. And because you could never be certain about what the right thing to build was, people delivered more than they needed, and the result being bloated software. And the interesting thing for me is that when the constraint on shipping got stripped away and more services became delivered online, people didn't necessarily let go of that old way of shipping with big releases, a long time between them. And maybe that approach makes sense if you actually think you can predict the future and you know exactly what will be right. If you're doing a predictable process, that makes sense. But software, I don't feel like is that. So many companies are still shipping software like Indiana Jones. They have this big expedition to get to the point of deploying the software. They think it's all looking well, and seconds later, perhaps they realize, oh, not quite as planned. And they think they get away with it, but damage is done. You make a big release like this, and so many things are changing that it's incredibly risky. Perhaps a little bit exciting, but incredibly risky. You learn a lot, and then you go back and repeat the process. But the way we can ship software today, where there's close to zero cost and no constraints on shipping, it actually becomes quite a boring thing. It's a snore fest. It happens in your sleep, basically. At Intercom, we do it 100 times a day, and it's almost never eventful. And when it is, it's usually straightforward because the changes are small and well understood. We can resolve them. And the kind of important principle here is that when you remove constraints, you enable new approaches. The kind of Robert talked from earlier, actually constraints are useful in both ways. When you have them, it can force you into doing things, and when you remove them, you unlock a whole lot of other potentials. And the approach it enables for us is this mode where we accept we need to learn, and we can operate in a mode of fast discovery. So at Intercom, we talk about shipping to learn, and this learning is at all levels. It's the product, is it the right thing? Do people use it? How do they use it? It's the team, are we working well together? How can we do better at this small change next time? And it's the people, it's the learning more on how to improve our craft and sharing knowledge in the team. So we ship to learn. And shipping is this thing that kind of breathes life into our team. It builds momentum and excitement. It gives you validation. That thing I did, turns out it's useful, and just those natural human instincts are satisfied on a regular basis. And we talk about how shipping is our company's heartbeat. It's the core of what we do. Just that ability to try something, learn, and repeat. So how do we get stuff done? The simplistic answer is that we get stuff done by working together. No one person can make a great thing happen. Very few, perhaps, maybe artists or something, but in software at least, no one person can make a great thing happen. So we work together, and in the early days at Intercom, that was all of us. We were all working together trying to build this product, and all super well aligned. We understood how each other thought. We had understanding and empathy for the different disciplines. We were like a mix of like engineers and designers. And we were really well aligned on this mission and this basic philosophy of how to solve problems. So I would call that team that we had 4 years ago like to be a really truly autonomous and multidisciplinary team. So mix of different types of people and roles, and really autonomous. We made all our decisions. No one was telling us what to do. It was pretty awesome. A lot of companies, and therefore a lot of people, think about things slightly differently. They organize themselves by discipline, and as a consequence, even simple projects sometimes span multiple teams. And there's a lot of project overhead in order to do that. And again, this is something that can work. It can work pretty well, but the consequence, and the one that kind of goes against our philosophy, is that it lengthens the feedback loops. You can no longer do something within a cycle of like a few minutes or a few hours. It always revolves around planning and coordinating between teams. So it's kind of at odds with our philosophies of like constant learning. So our small team 4 years ago worked pretty well. How do we do it at scale? We do it at scale by applying the same principles that worked when we were small. We build teams that have all the right people and roles that they need to succeed, and we strive to set them up to be autonomous, to be masters of their own destiny. And that's the simple part. It's like getting the right people on the team and giving them the space and support to grow. Turns out, though, often that can be quite superficial, and you can have, despite having them all on the same bank of desks or in the same room, you can still have these barriers and effectively have these disconnects and long feedback loops. So what we focus on is like the overlaps and trying to blur the boundaries between roles. We find teams work the best and can accelerate those feedback loops if they concentrate on the overlaps between disciplines. As an engineer, the better I understand and have empathy for my design partners, the more I know how I can help them and what context I can provide so they can make good decisions quicker. And the best people and best teams push these, like blur these boundaries the furthest. They're like, the definitions of roles are like almost blurry. Like the engineers and designers, for example, can almost second guess how they will think. This is how great teams work, my experience. And for me, like the greatest achievement, excitement, and fulfillment comes not when you're like prescriptive and telling teams what to do, what problems to solve, how to solve them. Rather, when you're supporting great people to do what they love and what they're great at. When you have great people that are aligned on a clear mission and have a clear shared understanding of how to work, magic happens. This photo is Lynn Hill, and her mission was kind of crazy at the time. It was to free climb El Cap. Maybe some people know what that is, but it was a significant thing. It was climbing this thing that a generation before was deemed unclimbable by any means. So if she had like adhered to like being told what you should do, how you should do it, she never would have attempted this. But she had this really clear mission. She wanted to be the first person to do this, and she had a team of people that supported her, and she did it. She became the first person ever, which is another lesson actually in that often the great things happen when people do things that are deemed crazy or impossible. And the funny thing is that after someone does this, it actually becomes possible, and many, many others do it. So I think for me the lesson there is that sometimes being crazy and seeing it through, having bravery and imagination, is how great things happen. And don't be put off just because other people think you're crazy. So in closing, I'd like to say a few things. First of all, companies of our generation, companies like Intercom and many others, they're created and led by creators, like people in this room. People who build and design and think about software. We're no longer like a stage in the execution of a business. We are the people, we are the business. The product is core to the business. And at Intercom, we built and grew our business to one that had thousands of customers and millions in revenue before we even added the functions of marketing and sales. If you have a great product, you can do that. It's an exciting time, and it's great to be a creator in this world. So to try to wrap up and leave you with some advice, I'll summarize what I've said. First of all, if you're joining a company, make sure you understand their mission. Make sure it's clear. Make sure it's one that excites you. Is it a thing you can really put yourself into? And make sure you're happy that the people that you've talked to in that company are on a mission. They're on that mission. Because if they're not, I'm pretty sure that friction will emerge and you'll be less happy than if you found a company where this was true. And if you're starting a company, focus on having a clear mission. It's what will inspire and rally your team. It'll help you hire great people that'll help make that mission a success. It'll help you communicate and promote your idea. All super important stuff. And for us at Intercom, we measure our success not by financial milestones or number of customers. It's by the degree to which we feel we've achieved our mission. So everything ties back to this. And with that in mind, we're literally just getting started, and it's exciting to see companies like Facebook, who are 10 years ahead of us, still living through trying to achieve this mission and doing phenomenal things to do so. Autonomy and ownership. If you're joining a team, again, try to find a team that supports people to grow, that gives you the space and support to do great work, not one that treats you like a unit of execution. And if you're building a team, realize that people are your most valuable asset. And it makes no sense to structure your team or your company or your processes in ways that add friction or take joy away from them. And thirdly, regardless of starting or joining, prioritize your ability to iterate, to do something and to learn and do something better. It's core to how you will learn and grow and do better as an individual or as a business. Startups move ridiculously fast. They have to. If they don't, they won't survive. But importantly, remember that it is speed in the right direction that actually counts. Without it, you can't survive. So, in summary, the simple framework is start with a mission, work in a way that enables you to learn and quickly adjust, and then focus on your ability to move fast. That is what I've experienced as the kind of underpinnings of our success today at Intercom, and I feel can be valuable to people regardless of starting companies or joining companies. Thank you.